The hardest challenge in my 42-year-old life was the last 12 months, okay. And I overcome it by drinking my way right through it.
Nice.
So I think the biggest challenge was moving away from my country without speaking the language to the country I was going. And that was quite hard. I didn't understand anybody. And how did I overcome it? So I learned the language and I smile a lot.
So the hardest challenge in my life was when I found out I had depression, and to overcome it, it's still an ongoing process. I'm doing therapy, I'm taking medication, and I have a really cohesive support group, like my friends that I can count on whenever I need to. And I always try to take care of myself. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easier. When it's easier, I plan for times when it's going to be harder. And it's still an ongoing process, but I can get through it.
El reto más difícil de mi vida lo viví cuando tenía 12 años porque mis padres se separaron y estuve 13 años sin hablarme con mi padre, nada de nada. Y 13 años después de haber hecho un curso sobre formación en mí misma y crecimiento personal, me di cuenta del valor que tenía la unión y la relación entre los padres. Y gracias a eso fue cuando empecé a trabajar más dentro de mí y poder comunicarme con él. Y a día de hoy la relación con mi padre es increíble, es mi fan número uno y he podido separar por un lado a mi madre y por otro a mi padre y que damos partes por igual.
The hardest challenge I faced in my life was very low self-esteem, which caused me a lot of time in a dark place, a lot of hours of thinking and thinking in negative ways. It was up to the moment where I started thinking about suicide, but later on I started discovering things like gratitude, mindfulness, yoga. I started working on my traumas, working with accepting my past and with accepting the person that I am.
Pues fue separarme, dejar un hijo pequeño en mi relación y lo he superado dejando pasar el tiempo, lo cual me hace pensar que el tiempo es una buena terapia. Todo se soluciona.
For me, my biggest challenge was when I moved out with 16 years old from my parents' home to move to another town to work voluntary in a hospital. And like for this, it was the first experience living alone and working in the hospital with so much responsibility. So for me this was very hard, but I overcome it like with good friends and just like not giving up, and also the references from the patients that they really liked me. This was my help to overcome this challenge.
Actually, the biggest challenge that I have to solve was with myself, because during a lot of times I had kind of negative problem with alcohol, and when I was drinking alcohol I was not a good person, and I felt in my deep that I don't know, that I had a good part and a bad part, and when I was drinking too much the bad part was coming up, and I solved it by stopping not drinking but adding weed in my habit. and now I'm totally chill with it, and I know that when I am starting to drink quite too much, I just smoke a bit and everything is alright, and my good part in my deep just come up, and every little things it's gonna be alright.
So when I was younger, I was considered like a tomboy, and I was always hanging out with the guys. I never wanted to play like kitchen with the girls on the playground, and I was always confused about my gender. And so I first learned about the non-binary term when I was in like 7th grade or 8th grade, but I didn't really understand what it meant. I didn't do much research. But then recently, just this fall, two people that I'm very close to came out as non-binary. And and so I decided to do some research on it to understand them better. And through the research, I figured out that I identified with a lot of it.
So growing up, it was in Sri Lanka, and we're really traditional, a really cultural country. So me, I was a very free spirit. I'd love to travel. So when I was like 21, I told my mom, I'm going solo traveling. And it was something that you've never heard of. Like, you can't travel by yourself, especially when you're that young. It's not a love sort of thing. And when I'd come back, my colleagues and my friends were like, what did you do? Why would you do that? You know, all sorts of weird questions. So I really felt like I truly didn't belong where I was, because everyone was different. They never felt that need I had to sort of travel and explore and feel the adventure. I guess it's mostly a cultural thing, but it was the hardest thing to overcome.
Vale, un reto fuerte de mi vida ha sido tomar la superación de irme de mi ciudad, de mi país, de Argentina, a venir a buscar una nueva calidad de vida, ya que también soy músico y artista y estoy buscando eso, experimentar en diferentes lugares del mundo mi música y conectar con más gente, que eso es lo más guapo que yo veo en esta generación ahora, que está todo muy unificado. No es solo que yo sea argentina, también soy descendiente italiano y la realidad que, como decimos, somos una ganga worldwide. Y lo guapo de eso, la superación fue eso, poder encontrarme aquí en un lugar donde también puedo expresarme tranquilamente, buscar más conexiones de gente y formar una nueva familia, como me gusta también decirlo. El tener mi familia toda de aquel lado en Argentina y saber por la posición que estamos en el país y en el mundo actualmente. Y nada, poder también ayudarlos de aquí a allá, para mí es una gran meta cumplida para mí.
So about 2 years ago or 3, I was very shy. I had only 3 friends and I wasn't able to make more than that because it's just very hard for me. And then somehow I got into a miscommunication issue with one of them. So she manipulated the other 3 into believing that I was a problem and everything, so they left me completely apart. And for 2 weeks I only cried. I had no friends. And then this one girl, who is now one of my best friends, like, she saw how bad I was and she helped me, and slowly I opened up to one group and then another one, and then now I have a lot of friends thanks to this problem.
El reto más difícil de mi vida fue cuando mis padres se separaron y yo tengo una hermana melliza, y era como que cada padre tenía una hija y era muy difícil convivir, entre mis padres no se hablaban, fue muy difícil, pero lo superé después cuando ya era más mayor. Hicimos crecimiento personal toda mi familia juntos y ahora mis padres son amigos, se hablan, se comunican y tengo una familia separada pero muy feliz.
So for me, I think it would be when I went to Canada when I was 14, so I was still in college, that's what we call it in France. So I was quite young, and my mom did an exchange with a teacher in Canada, so I had to leave all my friends and everything, and it was like really painful because when you're young you don't know, like, I know it was like a beautiful experience, but when you're young you don't like think like that, so it was really hard. But when I was there I felt like, oh, okay, I'm here for 1 year, I know I have like to accept it and it's gonna go fast. So yeah, that was some hard time, but I can handle it.
Well, the hardest challenge I've actually faced it is the knowing your interior, you know, knowing yourself, and I actually didn't overcome it yet. I'm on the search, on the path of like understanding things, and it's very important, you know, that we look for deep situations like that, like knowing each other or knowing yourself first and then knowing the others, you know. This is the hardest one, and we have to work on it in order to be a better person, maybe not to anyone but to yourself, to be a better person, like evolve much faster maybe.
So there are a couple, of course, but the one that I think I would love to overcome, which I haven't yet, would be that I tend to get super anxious and super impatient with anything that I do, and especially when it comes to work, I get even more anal about things. That's kind of been my thing, I think, ever since I was born, I guess, ever since childhood, and I think it's kind of entered in all aspects of my life. So it's work, and then I also dance. So when it comes to dance, when there is a show, I get super anxious just to make sure everything is done right, and I tend to do everything my way, so I tend to micromanage, which also I'm trying to get over.
Right.
But that's the thing that I'm trying to do now, is just kind of think of one thing at a time and not overwhelm myself with all the things that need to be done. So, you know, one thing, you get that done, move on to the next one. I can't say that I'm there yet, but I'm definitely trying.
I think it's when I stopped smoking weed. But also cigarettes. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore.
Okay.
But I am doing some, like, I am using this, so it's like kind of like cigarettes, so I can't be so proud of it.
But it's a step up,
yeah,
no?
but at least I stopped smoking weed.
Perfect.
1 year.
I think for me particularly it was during this last few months during the lockdown, because I mean, we were put in a spot where we can't go out and stay inside, and I was far from my country, far from India, far from my family, because I was living with the family but as an au pair. So it was pretty uncomfortable because we are used to a routine as people, how much ever we hate it. But I think when you don't have the routine, you have to put challenges for yourself, and so I think that's how I overcome it, by putting like a schedule for myself, listing down things I can do in the day, and I think that helped me fight the emptiness in the space.
My hardest challenge was when my family and I decided to move to America for my dad's work. I was really young, I was about 14, and my English was very poor, and my parents placed me in an American school, and it was really hard. I had to work 3 times as more as the other kids to catch up to their English level, but I also had to find a spot in a new school, so it was really challenging, but at the end I loved it, and I am very happy for the opportunity that it gave me, and my English is amazing now, so I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I'd have to say it was moving my entire life to Europe, so in general.
Okay.
I'm American born. I've lived there for about half my life, the other half in Kenya, largely because of my mom's job. My mom is Kenyan. But I mean, long story short, after graduation, I was in the US, found a job there like everyone else, had some friends, and I was very comfortable. You know, I had a career track, and I had stuff going on. I had a support network. I knew how it worked over there. But then I wanted a really big change, and I didn't really know I knew I wanted it, but eventually it became more and more apparent. And I decided, like, all right, well, let's do a master's program, not in the US because it's shit expensive, but you know,
so true.
Yeah, it's so I moved to Rotterdam, and I remember I sold all my stuff except for everything in 2 suitcases, and then I just moved to Rotterdam. Didn't know anyone there, didn't really have any form of support network, was a little hesitant, a little scared, a little homesick, to be honest, at first, but I mean, shit, everything worked out. I met a bunch of wonderful people. I managed to find a job that I like, and you know, I bounced around a little bit. I lived in France for a couple of years, one year in the south, 1 year in the north in Paris, and then finally came here in the middle of COVID-19, in the middle of isolation. So, but I love it. I love it here.